the right wing are obviously watching everything. The alt-right, who really didn't want Trump to go and have fueled the election fraud hoax to the bitter end, and were right on board with the insurrection. And they decided to wish Biden well.
He's not president of the United States anymore, and I can't stand that. I really am disappointed, but we're going to be okay. We're going to thank this president. Wow, what a sacrifice that he made, his family made, the amazing things that he accomplished, and he'll be back. But today we did hear from him for the last time as president.
A goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form. So have a good life. We will see you soon. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have a good life. All right. Now, he said back in some form. I think the president is going to watch and listen. He said he's going to do that, and he's going to evaluate his future, the country's future, perhaps. I know, but it was sad seeing him leave the White House for the last time on Marine One, on Air Force One. But folks, now it falls to us, and he's been very inspirational. We now have to fight cancel culture, each and every one of us. We, each and every one of us, have to stand up for our constitutional rights. How do you feel about Joe Biden? He is the president of the United States. It's okay, ladies and gentlemen, to say you do not wish the president success. It is. Now, I wish him no harm, of course, and I want him to be happy and healthy in his life, but I wish Joe Biden no success. I don't want him to re-enter the Paris Climate Accord. It's okay to say that. I don't want him stacking the Supreme Court as he pretty much said he would during the campaign. I don't want him to succeed at that. I don't want him re-entering any nuclear deal that was so flawed with the Iranians. I don't want to see that. So it's actually okay to say you don't want to see Joe Biden succeed. Remember, he is the head of the executive branch, okay? And we've got 3 branches. They are all co-equal. Fair enough? Fair enough. Joe Biden jumped the gun a little bit today. He got sworn in at 10 minutes to noon. I don't mean to nitpick, but does say noon according to the law. But anyway, here's a bit from today.
A cry for survival comes from the planet itself. A cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism that we must confront and we will defeat.
I hate white supremacy. I hate domestic terrorism, but we've got bigger problems than that. All summer long, this country was on fire, but Joe, for his liberal base, focused on what happened 2 weeks ago. And they're going to, it looks like, exploit that. This is my neighborhood over the summertime. You see this nonsense? It was happening in cities all across the nation. And Joe Biden, at the age of, 78, is suddenly, after 50 years in Washington, D.C., going to tackle issues of institutional racism and white supremacy. Joe Biden, a man who never sees race.
The first sort of mainstream African American who is articulate and bright and clean and a nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
Joe Biden in his late 60s marveling that there could be a bright, articulate, and clean African American male. Something tells me that Joe Biden, in his heart of hearts, is not exactly woke.
They are fucking lunatics.
Clueless.
Lunatics. Just they are not well. There's something wrong in the head. And I hate to just rush into another video, but there are 2 parts to this. The wonderful story that you've just seen there. Can I just say, those are the most rose-tinted glasses I've ever seen in my life, the way that he's looking at that. But it's nice to see him upset, though. I will say that. However, let's have a look at what Trump didn't deliver.
4 years, and one clear way to gauge a president's success or failure. Not simply whether they won re-election, but whether they left the country better than they found it. And by that measure, history will be brutal to President Trump. Because our country is more divided, more in debt, and less respected than it was before he took office. Let's look back at some of his inaugural promises to the American people.
We will bring back our jobs.
In fact, the unemployment rate in America is 2 points higher than it was when Trump took office, and that's after it spiked to over 14% after COVID-19 first hit.
We will get our people off of welfare and back to work.
There are more than twice as many people who filed for unemployment benefits than when he took office.
We will bring back our wealth.
In fairness, Wall Street has done very well under Trump, with the Dow Jones up 56%. But the national debt, which Trump promised to eliminate over 8 years, it surged by over $7 trillion. The deficit grew a stunning 429% on his watch.
We will build new roads and highways and bridges and airports and tunnels and railways all across our wonderful nation.
Unfortunately, no. Infrastructure Week never happened, with Trump storming away from a $2 trillion bipartisan deal.
We will make America safe again.
Hate crime incidents rose almost 20% from 2016 to 2019, the most recent figures available. Despite all the flag hugging, the percent of people saying they're proud to be an American plummeted over the Trump years. And when it comes to foreign policy, a 2020 Pew survey found that Trump is less trusted by people in 13 allied nations to do the right thing than the autocratic leaders of Russia and China. And one of the few areas where we can say America first on the world stage is in coronavirus cases and deaths. Now, for those folks who say that all of these numbers would look very different if it hadn't been for the pandemic, remember, Trump was deeply unpopular before COVID hit. In fact, his Gallup poll approval average of 41% is the lowest of any president on record. And none of that includes his 2 impeachments, or the more than 30,000 false or misleading claims, or the chaotic management style that led to a 91% turnover of senior White House staff, while having more than twice the number of people in his inner circle indicted than the last 4 presidents combined. Now Trump will be the first president since Andrew Johnson to refuse to attend his duly elected successor's inauguration. He's apparently recorded his own video farewell address where he'll tout his record. But we already have the First Lady's farewell address. It is full of true and worthwhile sentiments, but we thought it was missing some crucial context.
To focus on what unites us, to raise above what divides us, to always choose love over hatred, peace over violence, and others before yourself.
And that's your reality check.
I think that's such an important and interesting way to look at it. And yes, it is worth going back and looking at the promises made, promises kept. But when history writes about the Trump presidency, I think the first 2 lines are going to be the twice impeached president who oversaw the death of 400,000 Americans in his last year in office. And it's hard to get beyond that.
Absolutely. And also, the platitudes that any of the leaders or the First Lady speak are only soothing if you don't have videotape. If you have videotape or a memory of as long ago as 2 weeks, they don't make any sense in that context, actually.
Yeah, and if you just look at some of the numbers, they're historic. I mean, he leaves the presidency with the lowest approval rating after one term of any modern president. Melania Trump, and I do think it is worth noting, every First Lady in polling has left the White House with a positive net approval. She's leaving with a negative net approval. It just doesn't happen. They are leaving this in an historically poor position, and I think it will be reflected.
It seems like...
Yeah, and I'm glad they brought in Melania there because she's an enabler. Everyone was going to save Melania and all the rest of it bollocks. She didn't give a shit. She's sleeping with an obese, horrendous bloke who's locking kids up in cages, and they had separate bedrooms. She's not been sleeping with him they've not had sex once in the White House, trust me. And at the end of the day, she's an enabler. She watched everything Trump did and just stood there and let it happen. She allowed, what sort of a woman would be okay with her husband bringing in policies that were separating kids from the parents, and there's still hundreds of kids that need reuniting that hopefully Biden will do something about, and we will hold him to account for this. And the thing you will get on this show, if Biden is a useless bloke, if he is shit at this job, we'll be going after him on this show, believe me.
Thank you for watching. I'm impressed. You've passed the IQ test and got this far, so let's press that button to do the last thing that helps us. It's got subscribe on it, you can't miss it, and please ring the bell for notifications of future videos.